everybody. Welcome to the front porch. It looks like it's almost going to rain, so I might get rained out here. But so last night, my friend Kevin was over at my house. We were sitting outside on the patio here doing our typing thing and having a lot of interesting ideas. We were having a lot of good discussion, and I've always thought that I needed to record some of these meetings, these little get-togethers, but it's really kind of not really well suited for video because it's dark, it's at night, we barely have any kind of light, either an oil lamp or in this case I was using a little LED light, but it wasn't really well suited for video. And then I thought, what about all this audio cassette tape stuff that I've been doing lately? Why can't we just record audio of it? And I thought, why the heck have I not been doing that, huh? If you're having a discussion, you know, across a table or something, and you have using a directional mic, you sort of point it at the other guy, and as he's talking, and then when you flip it around, point it at yourself, and you respond, and you can kind of direct the sound, and maybe hopefully get pretty good location sound and discussion sound, even outdoors here with traffic noise out front with cars driving by too fast for the 25 mile an hour speed limit. That doesn't bother me, does it? No. That's the Van Cleve Slurp. It's designed to aerate the liquid and you get more flavor. This is the idea for telling stories when you're meeting together with your typewriter buddy, and the whole idea is this. So it's a pretty good medium for capturing basic conversations. And what would you do with such tapes? Do you wonder what I might be doing with a tape like that with some kind of a meeting on it? By the way, don't you love cassette tapes, especially the ones with the screws where you can take them apart and they're transparent, you can see through them? I mean, look at that. You can see everything about a cassette tape just by looking at it. I mean, you look at a memory chip, an SD card or a flash drive, and you think there's nothing you can see in there. You can't see those microscopic little transistors. Can't see the circuits, but here, everything that's happening, the only thing you can't really see is the magnetic fields themselves, and even then you could with the right kind of polarized light and a microscope. But look at that. Everything to do with it, you can see it. It's transparent. Anyways, what would I be doing with such a tape? Well, perhaps it remains to be seen if I play that through my Tascam, a better quality player, but if it's good enough quality audio, maybe start a podcast with these meetings, these typewriter meetings that my friend Kevin and I engage in. There's a lot of things we talk about in typewriters, about typewriters, conceptual things, wondering about this and that, maybe difference of opinion about this and that. That may not be as well suited in a YouTube format video, but I think in a podcast, a conversational program. So I'm not promising we'll have a typewriter podcast, but I don't know, it would be kind of fun. Kevin has plenty of experience, I do too. We both come at typewriters from slightly different viewpoints and histories. And so I think there's enough dichotomy of experience and view that it would be an interesting ongoing series. And of course, you'd probably be hearing us on the podcast, relighting our cigars and maybe slurping on a drink. Maybe that would be fun. Well, a little storm kicked up through here and drove me off the front porch. And so now I'm in the garage, and I don't smoke in the garage unless the garage door is open, which it is. Faces to the south, so we get some nice light coming in. I know, I think we're funny people here in the desert Southwest. Anytime it rains, we think it's special. Every other part of the country is like, ho-hum, it's just more rain. Yeah, any other part of the country, it's just rain, but in the desert Southwest, rain is special because we only get it during the summer months, and not every year do we get a lot of rain. Well, this is just a test recording of if I was sitting at a table and somebody was typing. Thinking about this whole idea of tape recorder, external microphone, impromptu typewriter gatherings on the patio, and using that as a podcast. obviously, if you were starting from the standpoint of, let's do a podcast about impromptu typewriter gatherings, you probably wouldn't be thinking of using cassette tape. You'd be, of course, using a digital field recorder like any common sense person would be. And of course, I do have the digital field recorder. I have the little Sony PCM M110, which is actually pretty decent, good onboard mics, and it also takes external inputs and all that. So, you know, to be practical about it, if I was starting from the point of wanting to do a podcast, that's probably what I should do. But on the other hand, since I have this fascination with audio tape, I think it would be kind of cool to do an audio tape-based podcast. And maybe you could market that. I don't know how that would work, but maybe there's a hook there. Would people be more or less interested in it because not only is it about typewriters, but it was done on audio tape? I don't know. I think that might be interesting because there's kind of a technological connection between, you know, manual typewriters or electric typewriters and cassette tape, audio tape formats. I've always been interested in radio stories, radio programming, as you probably know. What I find really fascinating about podcasting as a phenomenon is this is the year 2018, and with podcasting, it's actually growing. It's still growing as a medium. It's really essentially radio with a different distribution model. That's what podcasting is. Who would have thought in the year 2018 radio would be increasing in popularity? Not broadcast radio, but the concept of radio. Radio stories, people doing creative stuff other than commercially manufactured music and distributing it online. In our case, it's going to take some dedicated work. You can't just impromptu meet up and start recording. You really have to have an agenda, make it interesting, topical, and you have to have a regular schedule so that people can expect when's the next issue, when's the next episode coming out. So it's going to be, if we do it, it would be a little bit more concerted effort on our part to plan it and organize it. But yeah, there is a fascination with podcasting, audio stories, audio production. It's just interesting how that continues to be a valid distribution model, and people love hearing other people talk. It's probably something to do with the human condition. It's just, as humans, we love hearing people talk. We love stories. It's always been that way. I find it interesting, the observation that a lot of YouTubers are starting to get into podcasting now. And it's interesting, people that are full-time YouTubers doing it for a living, which I'm not, I think because of the economy, the economics of YouTube itself, they're having to find alternate income streams, not just like Patreon accounts, but other forms of media that might be monetized, and perhaps podcasting is one of those. And also there's a symbiotic relationship between like doing a YouTube video, having a YouTube channel, and then doing a podcast stream. That's one reason, right? The economics of it. But it's interesting how podcasting is still thought of as a viable medium. Now, I've seen a lot of YouTubers who will videotape their podcast session. They'll have a studio set up to look good like a studio on video, and they will show the video of the podcast on their YouTube channel while distributing the podcast as streaming audio, a subscription service or whatever. It's interesting. Now, you can podcast a lot of different ways. I mean, you could sit in your closet, which, you know, this is sort of the DIY approach. If you don't have professional sound proofing in your studio, you sit in your closet surrounded by your clothes and soft surfaces and do the podcast that way if you're doing it on your own. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do it. And if you're doing strictly podcasting without an accompanying video, you can actually get away with pretty economical setup, I think. I don't know if cassette tape, though, would be appropriate. I don't know if people would accept it because, first of all, the units that I have are monaural. And people, when they listen to a podcast, they like to hear a stereo production. I suppose you could set up two recorders, one for each person, have an external mic on each one aimed at each person, and then you could blend it as a stereo mix in the post-production, which might be an interesting idea, actually. Anyways, just brainstorming some ideas here. So yeah, you could use an inexpensive cassette recorder for recording cassette tape-based podcast audio, but if you already have the Marantz unit, why not use that instead? In fact, I had forgotten, but I have a tape in here. You hear the crickets? We're on the Kittles' front porch, and Kevin is typing on his Oliver. What model Oliver is this, Kevin?
This is an Oliver, a number 9, standard visible typewriter, and it has also got the print typeface that Oliver had.
And do you think of the Beatles song number 9 when you think of the Oliver number 9?
Ooh, I hadn't thought of that now, but it is pretty far out.
Far out. Yeah. So that's kind of what you can do with when you have a cassette recorder that actually records pretty good quality impromptu tape recording. It might be workable. It might be doable to make a podcast based on cassette if you're using a good enough quality recorder, of course, and a good enough quality microphone. Not really sure about the Takstar and the little toy plastic tripod. I think we might be using this Shure lens hopper and or my dynamic AKG mic with a mixer. Something like that might be better. Hey, this is Joe, and just an impromptu little porch garage smoke out and discussion about audio tape and typewriter get-togethers and the potential for podcasting with tape about typewriters. Until next time, you guys have yourselves a great day, and yes, it did quit raining.